Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, all of my students, friends, and the team of ORSAM. Thank you very much for inviting me for this wonderful summer schools. I think that this course has been one of the most useful courses which has been offered by the Middle East Center, ORSAM in Ankara. And today we are going to study and learn something about the Gulf politics. And Gulf politics means the society and the politics both. So, but I am not going to talk much about the current affair because we are going to learn some theoretical parts of the Gulf politics, how the Gulf politics is made and how it has evolved to this current situation. So we are going to learn some of the key features which are making the Gulf politics as a very unique and as an important factor in global politics. So much so that it has become a game changer region, despite the fact that region is not that much big in population and that not that much important in terms of arms and weapons, but still it has assumed so much importance in the global politics. So we are going to study what are these factors. So let me begin by showing you this map. This is Gulf country, Gulf region, and in this region you can see the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, which you can see is dominated by many oil wells, and Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, and much of Iraq, some parts of Jordan, and the coastal area of Iran. These are the areas which are dominated by oil resources and oil fields. So I will be explaining what does it mean in the Gulf politics. In this map, you can see that these energy resources are being transited from the destination to their export places. For example, they have to be, all the energy, gas and petrol has to be exported either via sea, I mean by ships, huge ships of course, or via pipeline. So you can see in this map that some pipelines have been made from the eastern part of Saudi Arabia and all the emirates which are located in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, such as Bahrain, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, and of course, Iran is also exporting via pipeline. So there are pipelines and there are also sea routes which are being used for this purpose. Now, let us begin with my key points of Gulf politics. What are the areas, what are the issues which define the Gulf politics? So we have some 4 or 5 points which you can easily understand. The one thing which defines the Gulf politics: rentier political economy. What does it mean? It means that in the late 19th, 20th century, the region was under the control of the British colonialism, and Aden and Baghdad and Mumbai was the main centers of controlling these regions because the British colonial administration offices were located in these areas. So the British exploration basically explored the region. They surveyed the region and they found that there are some very valuable things under the earth of this region. So they found some chemicals, some other elements, and finally they found that this is an oil which can be used for industrial purposes, which can be used for cars, for transportation, and can be used in big engines, which can be used in factories. Until then, you know that most of the factories in the European countries, they were using coal, and they were most of the European countries do not have enough coal. So for coal, they have to, they colonized many of the Eastern countries, such as China, India, and African countries. And they were taking coal from these countries and they were exporting these coals to the European countries to run their factories. And then their factories were producing so many products, and then they were selling these things to the global market. And it is how they were managing their colonial hegemony on the world. But when they found that there is oil, so they found that their dependency on coal is going to diminish. So they started focusing on these newly found sources. But there were three key problems in using the oil. The first key problem was that the countries where it has been found are Arab countries, the Gulf countries, and these are the people who do not know how to explore and how to use and how to take it from the ground. So there was no technology with Saudi Arabia, there was no technology with United Arab Emirates, and the people of the region, the Gulf countries people, they were just knowing that something has been found, but they do not know how to use it. So they never knew what is the importance of this newly found source. So this was the first problem. Second problem was that they were not having even financial resources to explore these things. They were very poor at that time. The third problem was that they were not having technology to explore these things, because to survey grounds and to take oil from deep grounds on the surface and then to export, we need a lot of technological things and equipments, which Saudi Arabia or all these countries were not having at all. And finally, they needed a lot of people, skilled people, who could have worked in these industries if they want to establish these industries. So they were not having all these things. So how to do things? This is also the period when anti-colonial sentiments were also rising. So there were demands that you should hand over the rule to the local people. In 1947, India became independent. In many other countries, independent struggles were going on. And similarly, there was a lot of pressure on the British colonial powers to leave their colonial control on the Gulf, and they have to find some local people to rule. So this is the time when they have to use this oil, and also they have to end their British colonial control, and also they have to find some formula. As a result, they found something new. They entered, first of all, they found some rulers, and then they negotiated with these rulers. Look, we are going to recognize you as the legitimate ruler of this region. And in return, you have to give me the assurance to use these newly found resources, oil, for 100 years at this rate. So the Gulf countries, the rulers of these countries, they easily agreed, because they knew that they cannot use it. And they also knew that they don't have enough resources to defend themselves. So they entered in long-term agreements with British colonial powers at that time. And it is how the British colonial power, they became hegemonic in this region, and they became powerful in controlling the region. Of course, on Iran also, and entire the Gulf region. So if you see that this region became under effective control of the British power. The second stop is that when they started becoming independent, and they started receiving the rent from this oil, gradually they found that they have become very rich, and they have so much money, but they do not know how to spend these monies, where to spend these monies, and how to use these things. For them, there were two key issues. Number one, that their rule should not be challenged. and they should have security. And there was huge interest of the United States and other European countries and the British and the Great Britain that these rulers must stay there, because if they go and if they are expelled from power, it means that the supply of oil, supply of these energy resources can be disturbed, or the terms and conditions can be revised, can be changed. For example, if there is a democratic country, democratic politics in Saudi Arabia, they can change the terms and conditions, and they can ask more rents, they can ask more money in exchange of their supplies. So they also wanted to keep the rulers in their places, and they did not want to want these rulers to be changed. So how to stop these change? To stop these change, they have to find a new formula for politics. What is that formula of politics? The formula of new politics in this region was going to be rent. What does it mean? Rent means you are getting some resources in exchange of selling your oil to the European countries. They are paying you huge money. So you have this money, and then this is your biggest source of income. The theory of rentierism says that any country which is dependent on single source of income, that country is called as rentier economy. So like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, for example, Kuwait, 87% of their income, national income, comes from oil. Qatar, for example, more than 75%, 80% income comes from gas. Similarly, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Emirates. So they are hugely dependent on rent of these energy supplies. That is why they are called as rentier economy, because they are dependent on one source of income. And they do not have other resources of income. So they, the British authorities and these kings and emirs, they thought that if they have so much money, they should distribute this money, these rents, among the people who are mostly tribal members. And if they distribute this income to the people of their countries, and in exchange, they can ask them the support. So you know that most of the Gulf countries are populated by traditional tribals, and these tribals are extremely proud people, and they have been trained with hardship, and they have been very struggling people for centuries, and they are very they have a proud history. So nobody can rule them, nobody can control them. And if you want to control them, you have to make some good promises. So the Saudi state, when they wanted to control these tribes, they have to make some promises. So they made some promises. Like the first promise they made that they will give them jobs, they will give them all the financial resources to build their houses, hospitals, roads, and everything. And also they promised one thing, that they will respect Islam, and they will be a Islamic society, and they will implement all the teachings of Islamic Sharia. But there will be one thing, that they will not demand for election. There will not be any election process or democratic things. So at social level, there will be all the tribal people which will have good contacts with the regime, with the ruling family, and they together will make the society as Islamic society, but there will not be any election. So it means that the ruler will never be changed, but there will be a combination of tribalism and Islamism, and in exchange of so much financial resources which will be supplied to these people. So it means that the rent was used to stop the elections, to stop democracy. There is a very famous saying in academics. We say that no participation if you are not paying any taxation. No taxation, no participation. So the people of these regions, they were not asked to pay any taxes. Rather, it is the state which are giving them everything. So there is no at all any tax. Now you can imagine that they are going to build a society which is based on rent. They will take rent from oil industry. They will distribute this income to the people of their country, and they will ask their people to support the regime, the state, and do not demand for election. And also state will not demand, will not ask anything, any tax or anything else. But also the state is going to provide them everything free of cost. House, hospital, roads, and all the services, or of course jobs. Now another problem is going to rise is that when they have started providing their own people assured jobs, most of the jobs were in state sector, not in public sector. And because these jobs were coming without any struggle, free of cost, most of the people were hired either in education sector or in security sector, like they were made police and they were made in army. In most of the sectors, these are the sectors where they were hired. And they could not open their education sector in a way where they could have trained their own people to become top class engineers, doctors, professors, or for modern education. And they focus so much on traditional education, Islamic education, where they were teaching all the things except scientific things. So it means that they have a population where the number of engineers, capable engineers, are very less, where the number of doctors are very less. So what is going to happen is that within 30 years, these societies, they were having so much money, they were having so much income, but they didn't have the knowledge how to use this income and how to use these resources. So now they wanted to build their country, they wanted to change their society, they wanted to make new cities. So they needed huge number of workers. And number one, they were not having trained workers. Number two, they were not having enough population. And also the population was already being paid from state salary without doing anything. So they were not having any incentives. They had no need to work in a factory. So as a result, Saudi Arabia and all these countries, they needed to have huge number of workers from outside. So Pakistanis went there, Indians went there, and from all over the world, they found so many people. So I will show you a map. If you see this map, you can see that in Bahrain, the local population is 45% and the outside population is 55%. In Kuwait, it is 70% population is from outside, which means that either they are Indians, Pakistanis, Egyptians, or from Bangladesh, for example. In Oman, the outside population is less, 44%. In Qatar, 87% population is non-Qatari, which means that they have been called from outside. In Saudi Arabia, 37% population is outside, and in UAE, 87% population is outside. Sorry, in the region, 51% or 52% population is from outside. Again, the outside population cannot be given citizenship. They are just workers. You can imagine if 87% people of the UAE who are outsiders, they are living there for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. If you are living in the United States, or if you are living in the United Kingdom, for 5 years or 10 years, you can get citizenship. in any European country, if you are spending this much time, you can get citizenship. But in these countries, you cannot get the citizenship also, and you have to stay there without citizenship or without other services. So this is one feature that they are depending on foreign workers. Now, the third point, which is important, is that they wanted to develop their societies. And as I said, that they have to find a formula of development in which they can feed their own people, and then they can make many things without endangering their own regimes. The king of Saudi Arabia or the king of other countries or the emirs of other countries, they cannot be changed. They can never be replaced. So the regime security was paramount, was the most important thing. And it is how the sense of security in these countries developed. For example, if you ask, what is the national security of Great Britain? What is the national security of Germany? What is the national security of any other democratic country? So the national security in any other country is about the country, about the survival of that country itself. But regional security or national security in Gulf countries is meant by the security of the ruling class, which means that the security and safety of the Al Saud family or Al Nahyan family or other family members is the security of their nation. So there's no difference between national security and security of the king and emirs. It is how their concept of security also started. Now, fourth point is Arab public sphere. By public sphere, we mean what they are talking, what they are debating in their public places. As I told you, there was no democracy because they were giving income to their tribal people on condition that you will not ask any right. You will not ask for any political rights. If you want to criticize the king, you don't have this right. Why? Because we are paying you already everything which you need. So in this kind of system, if you have a public place, you have newspapers, you have televisions, so you cannot criticize your own governments. So if you compare the public sphere of Saudi Arabia and the public sphere of Germany, for example, you will find in Germany and in Turkey or in India, you can criticize your government whenever you want and whatever you want to say. Everything. You can make cartoons, you can make satire about them, you can make any kind of criticism about these countries and their rulers, because the rulers of these countries are for some period. The Prime Minister of Germany, of Great Britain, or the Chancellor of Germany, they are for some time and then they will finally go and new leaders will come. But in these countries, it is not going to be like that. So the public sphere has to respect the leadership and the religion and other sensitive issues. So if you go there, you will find that public sphere or media and websites, they do not talk like people talk in Germany or other European countries. So there is a difference. Another importance of the Gulf region is because the region is a source of 70% global energy supply. America, Britain, China, India, and all major powers, their economy is dependent on energy supply. The more a country wants to grow, for example, India is a developing country. India is not that much developed. So if India wants to develop at 10% annual rate, India would need more energy, more oil, more gas, because they have 500 million people who are outside development. For example, if only 50% population in India have cars, if 30% more people purchase car, it means that their energy need will increase. Similarly, in Pakistan, in many other countries, millions of people are living without electricity, without gas. So if they become more developed and they would need more energy, it means that their dependency on these countries is going to increase. So as a result, the relation between India and Saudi Arabia or the Gulf countries, the relation between China and these Gulf countries have become so important. They cannot leave this region because their growth and their development is dependent on the energy supplies which is coming from these countries. So no country wanted to tell them you should have democracy, you should make your country like this and that. For example, all the democratic countries, they talk about democracy for everyone. But when it comes to the Gulf countries, they say, okay, you can live as you want, because they need energy resources. So what I'm trying to say is that because the region is the main source of global energy supply, and that is why they have become so important for their customer countries. One important feature which you as a student, as a scholar should watch is that the Arab states, and especially the Gulf countries, they did not become nation state in the same sense as the nation states of any European country. What is a state? The state means you have institutions of judiciary, institution of executive, institution of parliament. So you have so many institutions, and these institutions most of the time work independently in cooperation with each other. But in Gulf countries, you would find that they don't have these institutions, and they don't have independent or freely working institutions. All institutions in these countries are dependent on the royal family and the regime. So as a result, the state in these countries is different from the state which are found any other country. So I would like to highlight once again that if you want to see the Gulf countries, you will find these 5 main features. Number one is that these countries, the Gulf countries, their main economy is petroleum, and they are dependent on the income on petroleum. Now, you should ask one question: what if there is no oil? What if the oil price goes down? What if there is a disruption in oil supply? So if not oil, what will happen? If you ask these questions, you will immediately find many news that these countries are really worried, because they know that oil is not permanent. Oil is not permanent because there are many countries which are exploring oil and gas, and there are many countries which are trying to find renewable energy as well. So it means that the dependency on oil, dependency on petroleum is becoming a liability, a source of problem. For 50 years, they were very happy. They were saying that, okay, every country is needing us and every country is in our need, so we are going to remain rich always. But now there are many countries which are also producing oil, which are also exploring new sources of energy. For example, if you see the United States, 10 years before, the US was dependent on Gulf supply, but now United States has also become an exporter of energy. Similarly, Russia has become a net exporter of energy. Venezuela has become an exporter, and there are many other new countries which are becoming player of energy. The second thing is that they are also dependent on migrant workforce. They do not have enough population, and their population is not enough trained. So they are dependent on foreign workforce. Now, you should ask 2 questions. If their oil income goes down, so their income will decrease. And if their income is going to decrease, how they are going to keep these migrant workers there? So if you ask these 2 questions, you will immediately understand that they will do something. How did they do? For example, they cannot impose taxes on their own population, but they can impose new taxes on the foreign workers, because foreign workers are not their nationals. Foreign workers are just their guests, and they may not object in that way. And especially the workers which are coming from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are very poor people. They are very ordinary people. They are doing all the small jobs which no Saudi or no Emirati or no Qatari will ever do, like cleaning, like driving, like housekeeping, or other small office works, like becoming a salesperson, opening a shop, and making food in house, or opening the restaurant. So you would see that Saudi citizens or the Qatari citizens or the Kuwaiti citizens would not like to do all these jobs. But these jobs are small, so their income is also very small. But if the oil income goes down, the state of these countries cannot impose taxes on their own population. If they impose new taxes on their own population, the people will ask, why you are imposing, why you are imposing taxes on us? And if you are imposing taxes on us, you have to tell where you are going to spend these taxes. For 70 years, they have not taken any tax. But if you are going to impose new tax now, or if you are going to make energy, petrol and gas very expensive, then you have to tell us why these are going to become expensive. So they cannot make their own population angry. They cannot make their own population feeling bad, feeling poor. So they have to impose new taxes on migrant workforce. And also, if their oil income is going to decrease, they will find some ways to reduce their dependence on foreign workers. So if you Google, you will find some interesting terms. The terms is like Saudiization, Emiratization, Omanization, Qatarization. What these terms mean? These terms mean that, for example, Saudiization, it means that Saudi Arabia should hire more Saudi people for all jobs. And Saudi Arabia should reduce its dependency on foreign workers. So in 2014, Saudi Arabia, and before that, all of these countries, they introduced new schemes to make their workers more and more Saudi and more and more local population. And they wanted to reduce their dependency on foreign workforce. So, for example, I will give you one recent case. They have made family visa for all the foreign workers very expensive. As a result, many of the families of foreign workers, they have left Saudi Arabia and they are now in India and Pakistan and back to their countries. Many of the people, they have been forced to leave the country. Maybe their taxes have become very high, or their income has also gone down. So gradually, the foreign population or foreign workforce is under pressure, and they are leaving these kingdoms. The third factor, which is also about dependency on energy customer countries. You have to understand it like if you are a businessman, if you have just one product in your factory, and that just one product is your oil and gas, and if any other person in the world is also becoming a businessman in the same field, you will feel very insecure. So what happened in the last 20 years is that many new countries have become oil producer. They have also become energy suppliers. For example, Iraq has become powerful, and after war, Iraq has become equal to Saudi Arabia. Iran also has lots of resources, both energy, both oil and gas. So if you are a consumer, as a consumer country, you will find a strategy that you will not buy all of your energy, all of your gas and oil just from one country. Like China, if you see from where China is buying oil and gas, China is buying 20% from Saudi Arabia, 20% from Iran, 10% from Venezuela, 10% from Russia, 5% from Nigeria or some other countries. So they always distribute their energy source. Why? Because they know if there is any disruption in the market, then they will face a pressure. So they don't want their energy supply to be disturbed, and they want to keep their oil supply distributed and differentiated from different sources. And similarly, this is the point of view of a customer country. India, for example, India has good relations with Saudi Arabia, but India does not buy all of its oil from Saudi Arabia. That's why India wants to buy from Iran, from Saudi Arabia, from Iraq, from other countries, from many other countries. And similarly, Turkey and all of these countries. But if you are a supplier of oil and gas, you will think differently. You would like to supply more, you would like to sell more and at higher prices and to good customers. If you have this tendency, it means that, for example, China is the biggest consumer of oil and gas right now. So China has become the biggest consumer. India is also going to become the second largest consumer of oil and gas. So these two countries are going to be the most important in future. And as I told you, that other countries, especially the United States, they have found their own shale gas, and other European countries, their economy is going down, and also already they have become developed country. So their economy is not going to increase more than that. They are going to remain almost same. But the developing countries, mostly Malaysia and Indonesia, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, these are the Asian countries which are going to become more a importer of energy resources. It means that Asia is going to become the biggest destination of oil and gas supplies and exports from the Gulf countries. That is why you have seen that in these years, all the Gulf countries, they have become more and more Asia oriented. Everyone wants India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and China to become close friends. Why? Because they know that their oil and gas is going to be used by them, supplied to them, and they will pay the rent for these supplies. So they also would like to create more and more customers where they can sell their supplies more and more. But what is happening is that these countries, they really do not want to make their dependency on just one country. So there is a tension between exporter and importer. The exporter wants to export more. The importer wants to import more, but not just from one country, but from different countries, and also not at fixed price, but at lower price always. So the interest of customer is that the price of energy should be always very low and at a minimum cost. So these are the tensions. Now, in the last 10 years, you must have observed that the price of oil had gone 140 dollar per barrel dollar, which means that at $140, these countries were making huge income. And in our academia, we use the term deep pocket. Deep pockets means that they have so much income. And they had so much income, that's why they had invested their income in making new cities, in making buildings, in making new institutions and universities and many things. So if you go to Dubai of today and if you see the photos of Dubai 25 years ago or 50 years ago, you will be surprised because it is entirely new Dubai. So after the price of oil has gone down from $140 to only $30 just 3 months before it was almost $20, it means that their total income is going to be almost devastated. They will, for example, if you see the budget of Saudi Arabia, they never had any deficit budget. They had never realized that their budget is will ever go in the minus and they will feel the deficit of resources. But today, they from 2015 onwards, they are seeing that their income is going down and down. So there is one conclusion of my talk is that the Saudi income or the Gulf income or Gulf economy is declining. Number two, the population of Saudi Arabia or population of the Gulf countries, they were working in state sectors, but now they are being trained to come and join the new economic sector. So there is economic pressure that they should sell not just oil, but some other things. But what will be the other things which Saudi Arabia or the Gulf countries can sell? Can Saudi Arabia or the Gulf countries sell tourism? Yes, they have to do. They have to open their historical places for tourism. What other they can sell? They can sell education, for example. They can sell many other things. But if they want to sell anything in the world, they have to a trained population, which can become a productive population. A productive population means a skilled population which can make something. If they cannot produce anything, it means that they cannot be competitive enough. And for that, they have to train their young population. It means that they have to open medical colleges, they have to open engineering colleges, they have to make their population in science and technology, in many other sectors. So in the last 25 years, when Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries realized that the price of oil will go down, since then they started new policy programs. What was the new policy program? We can use a term, you can write down this term, diversification. Diversification means they have to make their source of income beyond oil and gas, which means that they have to create new sources of income beyond oil and gas. So these new sources will compensate the deficit which they are going to face because of the decline of oil prices. And in this way, they can maintain their economy. Again, if you compare the Saudi income in last 10 years, you would see that they have made no increase at all. Rather, they have their total income has gone down. When you have come to know that your income is going to decline, it means that you would start thinking differently. As I told you, they had 2-3 things. Number one, they told their population, look, you do not need any election on democracy. We will give you everything. You should not question us. Today, income has declined. Now they are telling to their population, look, our pockets are becoming empty. We don't have enough income. We cannot give you. Rather, we will make some taxes on you. So the question from the population is going to come is that, okay, we will give you the tax, but we also want accountability, transparency, and good governance, and new civil rights, and maybe the political rights as well. So these are the tensions which are going to happen. Second, 10 years ago, Saudi Arabia was considered as the leader of Islamic country. Why Saudi Arabia needed to be the leader of Islamic country? Just because of holy cities Mecca and Medina? Not exactly. Rather, because Saudi Arabia was the biggest source of energy for all over the world, and the security of the Saudi family and the family of other ruling countries, other ruling classes in the Gulf was most important thing. So what they wanted to do is that they told all the Muslim population all over the world, look, we are kings, we are amirs, but we are caring for Islam and we are caring for Islamic things. So if you want to make a mosque in your country, take money from us. So the Saudi government invested and spent so much income, so much financial resources in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in other countries by building mosques, Islamic centers, Islamic institutes there, so that these populations should start thinking that, okay, Saudi Arabia is also a good country and they are taking care of Islam and Muslims. So in this way, Saudi Arabia would become the leader of Islamic world, because Saudi Arabia is spending so much income on Islamic affairs. The Organization of Islamic Country, the OIC, they spend a lot of money there. They spend a lot of money on Egypt. They spend a lot of resources on Jordan, in Syria, in many other countries. So it is how they maintain their status of leader of Islamic world. Now, if they don't have this income, if their income is going to decline, it means that they cannot spend the same amount in Pakistan or any other country. Especially with Pakistan, their relations were extremely good, because Pakistani military told them, okay, we can secure you, we can provide you security. And in return, Pakistanis were also demanding them more resources for their economy and also oil supplies. But now Saudi Arabia is also becoming poor. If Saudi Arabia is also becoming poor, then how they are going to supply and how they are going to spend the same amount in Pakistan? So the relation between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia is also not very good these days, because Saudi Arabia cannot spend the same in the same fashion as it used to spend just 10 years ago. So the relation between Islam and Saudi Arabia, the relation between Islam and Gulf politics is changing. The Gulf countries cannot become and do not want to remain as the leader of the Islamic country. They do not want to spend extra income anywhere, because they don't have extra income these days. So what I'm trying to say is that the change in their economy is changing many other things. And because there is no democracy, because there is no transparency, the ruling class is trying to change the society in a very rapid and in a very dramatic way. Just a few data I would like to show you. For example, if you see Kuwait, the petroleum makes 43% of GDP. 87% they export is all about petroleum. And 75% income is coming from government sector, which means that they don't have enough private economy. Saudi Arabia, 87% of Saudi budget is coming from petroleum. 90% of their export is about oil economy. So I'm going to the conclusion part of my lecture, and I would like to say that if you compare Saudi Arabia and all these Gulf countries, you would find that there is a mismatch between their politics and their economy. Their economy is declining, and their politics does not have enough innovation, does not have enough institutional capability to respond to this crisis. And also they have huge problem in their society. So there's economy, politics, and society. And all these three sectors, politics and economy and society, are standing apart from each other. They are not working together. Economy is not supporting politics, and politics is not supporting society. So the society in the Gulf countries is apart, is torn, and they are not working together. This is the biggest crisis which the region is facing. As a result, what they can do, in any society where such a crisis happens, then the ruler of the country takes the top-down approach, which means that they will not ask the society, what do you want? They just impose something on them. For example, in Saudi Arabia, they have launched a process, they say the new economic vision 2030. So they have not asked their population, what do you want to do? What kind of economy you want? What kind of economic rights do you want? Without asking them, they just introduce a new system, a new economic package, which they ask from their American partners, and then they said this is the best economic reform which we are going to do. In this new economic reform in Saudi Arabia, they want more and more women to join the industry and work there. Good. They also want to open tourism sector, entertainment sector. It is good. 10 years ago, there was no music concert in Saudi Arabia because the population was thinking that this is not Islamic and they should not do this in an Islamic country. But today they are doing. But government has allowed all these things to do. But the population is still conservative, and many of the people, they are feeling that Saudi Arabia is becoming westernized, Saudi Arabia is becoming un-Islamic, less Islamic. And when Saudi Arabia goes to establish relations with Israel, with Americans, with other Western countries, the population becomes very mistrustful and they lose their confidence on the ruler. And if the relation between the state and the local population is going to decrease, which means that if the local population is not having enough trust on the people, on the ruling class, the ruling family, it means that the Saudi society and politics is going to be weak and weaker. It means that the possibility of a change, the possibility of a revolution, the possibility of a protest, the possibility of the kind of Arab uprising or the protest movement becomes very high, because the sources of dissatisfaction are increasing. The sources of discontent are increasing every day. And not just in the Gulf of politics, but also outside the Gulf politics. Why? Egyptian economy was dependent on Saudi economy because lots of Egyptians were working here. And Saudi Arabia was giving economic package to Egypt. Jordan was completely dependent. Lebanon was completely dependent on Saudi economy. If you see the problems of Egyptian economy and Jordan and Libya, Lebanon, you would see that the decline in these countries is directly related to the decline of economy of the Gulf. So it means that if Gulf declines, it is not just the Gulf which will decline, but also the entire Arab world will decline. The entire Arab world will be affected. And that is why in 2011, the Arab Revolution happened, because the decline of the Gulf countries had started at that time. So they have to take a top-down approach, authoritarian style approach, and they would make their media to play on their behalf. So what I'm going to say is that the crisis in the Gulf region is a permanent crisis, is a big crisis. It is an economic crisis, and it cannot be fixed very easily. The drop in international oil income is going to stay there. It is not going to become again $100. And the rise of new players in energy market, Russia, US, Venezuela, and other countries, is going to become more and more important. It means that the dominance of oil of Saudi Arabia or the Gulf countries is no longer there. They are important players still, but they are not the single important player. For example, in 1977, I think, when the Arab-Israeli war happened, at that time, Saudi Arabia declared that they are going to impose an oil embargo on all countries which are supporting Israel. But if they declare it today, nobody will take it seriously. Because today, their energy diplomacy has declined. And the pressure of their young population is going to become very high. And the relation between the state and society is becoming weak. A state and religion is going to become weak. And the tribal population and state, the relation between tribal population and state is also going to become very weak. So in this situation, the Gulf society and Gulf politics is heading towards a permanent crisis, a bigger crisis every day. And whenever the oil price is going to down more, it means that the crisis can become an explosive. It can explode in a very bad condition. It means that the stability of this region is going to be a biggest source of problem. So I would suggest you all to have some readings. I have suggested some 5-7 books which you can understand. You can read to understand the discussion which I have just made in my presentation. There are Khaldun al-Naqib and Arab Human Development Reports are so important to understand the Gulf. And I have one article on Arab media. Saduddin Ibrahim is a professor in Egypt. He had written in 1982 a good book, The New Arab Social Order. And Hazim Biblawi has pioneering studies on rentier state, and then sociology of the Gulf rentier system. And Professor Gajesh Pant has an excellent study on how the Arab uprising happened and what are the economic reasons of the Arab uprising. If you do all these readings or some of these readings, you would realize that the Gulf politics has a problem and they don't have enough solution. So it is how we are here in the Gulf politics. So I will receive now questions from you and your observations and comments. So thank you very much. Okay, can we say that oil security formula is replaced security normalization formula? What will be an alternative source of income away from oil and gas? What do you think was the main mistake in the formation of the Gulf countries? In a previous lecture, I saw there was Arab uprising in Saudi Arabia too. Trisma, can you explain the event? There is a research in Iraq which has shown that if there wasn't any oil there in Iraq, okay, let me respond to the first set of questions. I'm trying to respond 4 or 5 questions together. So I will explain some questions which have been asked here, especially with regard to Iraq. I would say that, and oil itself, there are many observers who have said that this oil resource has become a curse on the region, on the Middle East, because of this oil politics, they have become a tool of Western countries' new imperialism. They are being used like this because they are forced to stay like this. It is a reality. There are many observers who say like this. So in case of Egypt also, yes, this is true. But a good question is, like you have asked, what is the mistake in the formation of these Gulf countries and their state? I think that the biggest, I would not say it is just a mistake, because the politics of, at that time was different. The biggest mistake in the Gulf politics was the fact when many of these countries, they were told that, look, your enemy is Ottoman Empire, and you need to be away from the Ottoman Empire. So when they started fighting against the Ottoman Empire, then this was their biggest mistake. I mean, Ottoman Empire was already very weak. If you wanted to fight against the Ottoman Empire in late 20th century, Ottoman Empire was already very weak. Nobody could have fought with them. So it means that if you had negotiated with the Ottomans that you want to make a confederation, you want to make a different kind of relation, it was possible. So you did not need the British Empire there. You did not need the Western countries there. All the Arab countries and Turkey and Iran, they together could have done this. So this was their biggest mistake, to seek a foreign hand, a Western hand, to support their economy and support their industry. And this, I still think, is their biggest problem, and they have to come out from this problem. The second problem is that they have not included their own population in the decision-making process. They could have opened a parliament, they could have opened many other process of taking their population in the decision-making. In this way, they could have stopped the Western pressure on them or any other pressure. But the kind of politics which they have done had made them like they are not a country, they are just a ruling class. So a ruling class has become a country, a state. And how big is the ruling class? Just maybe 1% of total population. So this, I think, is a serious problem. Yeah, again, there are many questions about Israel, whether these countries, they have established relations with Israel, if it is going to be useful for them or not. As I said, that who is your enemy and who is your friend? The enemy of a country is an imagined thing. You can perceive about it. But in the Gulf countries, the enemy of a country is a person who is talking about the ruling class. Anyone who is talking against Al Saud family, he is considered as the enemy of Saudi Arabia. Anyone who is going to talk about the ruler of Al Nahyan of UAE or Kuwait, they will consider that he is anti-Kuwaiti or anti-Emirati or anti-Qatari. So the threat in these countries is not an easy thing. For example, if you criticize Hassan Rouhani of Iran or Erdogan of Turkey or any other leader of a democratic country, they will say, okay, you are criticizing Erdogan, it doesn't matter, but you can also be a friend of Turkey or other countries. Because they do not think that these rulers are equal to their country, because they have a big parliament and everything comes through parliament, through election. So even though they do not like Erdogan, they have to respect him because he is coming via election and he has a big parliament there. But in these countries, the perception of threat is different. And that is why they have established relations with Israel, not to protect Saudi Arabia, but to protect the Al Saud family. And Al Saud family has become a synonym of Saudi state. This is a big mistake, which I think that in this relation, it is not going to happen. And the relation between the state of Israel and these countries are not equal. We always say that relation between two countries should be on equal basis. friendship can be on equality, on the basis of equality. So if one partner is given so much rights and second partner does not have any right, it is not called friendship. Sometimes it becomes colonialism. Like in America, in the friendship between Saudi Arabia and America, it is America which is doing everything. The Saudis do not have any role. So the Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries, they have to find relations which are based on equality. And the relations on the basis of equality can happen only within the region, with Saudi Arabia, with Turkey, with Iran, with India, with China, with other partners in Asia. So I think this is a great problem. Some questions have been asked about taxes and economic issues. As I said that they have to introduce taxes, but they cannot introduce a tax system which is just imposed without any planning. If people are not given job opportunity in private sector, if there is no non-oil sector, so how you are going to impose new taxes? And if you are going to impose new taxes, where will these people make their new income? So unless they change their economy, unless they make a new economic formula, I don't think that they can introduce a huge taxation system in their countries. So they have to find some other ways. Okay, I will try to answer all the final questions because there are so many questions. Thank you very much. But practically it is impossible to read all questions and answer all of these questions. But I would say that the Gulf society, as I explained, they have some serious problems. They have serious problem in their model of economy. To change that, they have to make their economy more diversified. And to do that, they have to make their own population more educated, more skilled, and more productive. They have to make their population. And for that, they have to adopt a new social democracy. They have to introduce some freedom, some different kind of social practices. In this way, they have to become more democratic, more respectful for others. But the direction where they are going, you can see that the options which are being chosen by these countries, they are not to make these countries powerful. Rather, the steps which are being taken by these countries are to save and to protect the ruling families of these countries. The ruling family of Saudi Arabia, the ruling family of the United Arab Emirates, or the state of Oman, or Qatar and Kuwait. To save their ruling family is a different thing, and to save the society and the country is a different thing. The steps which are being taken today, they are completely to save the regimes of these countries, not the people and not the society and not the country. So these steps are temporary, and these steps are not inclusive, and they do not empower the people. So the reforms which they call as reform are not reforms. The change which they are saying that these are the changes which their countries are taking are not changes. They are just a facade. So I am not that much hopeful that such changes are going to change the society and politics of the region, and some big change can happen. As a result, I see that sources of dissatisfaction, sources of disappointment, sources of discontent or anger are going to stay unchanged. And as a result, I am afraid that in the future, the Gulf region can face a huge backlash and huge protest from their own people. And I hope that these countries are in position to respond to the crisis and find some excellent model for their future. So here I would like to stop my lecture, and thank you very much for everyone who have asked the questions, wonderful questions. I'm sorry I could not take all of them, but they are wonderful. The organizers, and I will also type my email there. So anytime you can reach me, you can ask me questions. And if you are writing, if you are working on a paper or your thesis, you can always approach me about your academic activities. I am always there. So with help of ORSAM Ankara, we again thank you everyone, and thank you the organizers and everyone who has made this event possible. Thank you very much. Goodbye.